When I mention his name, what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
Well, I guess the visual of his always bubbly, happy face. He's one of those guys who he was a laid-back, happy individual.
Right. What kind of things did you guys do together off the ice?
Well, we weren't real close, Pelle and I. I mean, he's our goaltender, but
right.
We never hung together very much. I was married with 4 kids, and he was a young single guy, so there was a little difference.
Sure. Now, one thing that I thought was pretty neat, as I did some research in the articles, he mentioned that he was excited about the rides to practice when you'd bring him donuts, and the fact that he reminded you of your puppies. Was there something about his personality that did that? Was it his innocence?
Well, he was, I called my English Bulldog and named him Gump after him.
Right.
That's what they called Pelle, Gump, because
right.
Pelle had the big round head like the Bulldog did, and short, squat body.
And it seems like he was a very, like you said, laid-back type of individual.
Yeah, he was probably one of the few people who go through an organization that just everybody liked.
Wow.
You never heard a bad thing said or thought about Pelle.
Wow. What do you think made him stick out as the goaltender of the future versus a Pete Peters, a Bob Froese, a Ron Hextall? What was different about Pelle?
Well, Pelle dominated the minor leagues when he was on our minor league team in Portland. Like, as a rookie, he was Rookie of the Year, MVP, won every trophy he could possibly win down there. So he came in with an awful strong pedigree. The expectations on him were extremely high.
So the organization knew there was something special there with Pelle.
Special, absolutely.
Right. What limitations did he have to overcome?
I think the only limitation, if it was a limitation, was that he played in Europe. He played on the big ice, and it's a little different game over here. It just took him he just had to make some minor, I don't know if they're minor adjustments. He had to make some adjustments to playing on the smaller ice and more traffic in his crease and stuff, but obviously didn't have much effect on his game.
The 82-83 season was kind of tough for Pelle towards right after the All-Star game with that Gretzky debacle. What do you think the reasons were for his struggles that end of that season and also the next season?
I don't think it had anything to do with the Gretzky thing. I think that he was a rookie, and prior to going to the All-Star game, Ben Wilson and a couple of the players shaved the hair off his head, and he was extremely embarrassed by it all, and it took a lot out of him.
It's amazing. You're about the 4th or 5th person to mention that. Mm-hmm. So that was really a traumatic experience for him.
Yeah.
Wow. And is it true Bob McCammon got the team together and said, you've ruined Pelle for the rest of the year?
I don't recall that, but it could have been.
Wow.
He certainly struggled the rest of the year.
Do you think that was the continued struggles the next year was attributed to that as well? Because 83-4, he went down to Springfield, right, for a couple games?
Yeah, I think it had an enormous effect. I mean, part of being a great goaltender is your personality. And the team, those idiots who shaved him, they hurt his personality a lot. It took him a while to bounce back.
Wow. And do you think it was also the cultural difference?
No. There was no. I don't think there was any cultural effect on Pelle. Pelle was comfortable everywhere. Everybody was comfortable with him.
Mm-hmm. How far do you think he would have gone had he lived? I mean, do you think the Flyers would have won some more Stanley Cups in the 80s, or?
Well, it's a goaltender like that. It certainly increases your odds.
Sure.
And we also had Hextall coming, so one of them would have been traded for some pretty good assets. They were pretty valuable. I mean, I'm not trying to be cold about it.
No, sure.
But one of the two, both of them were at the very top of the goaltender ladder. And you keep one and trade one, it makes the team a lot stronger. But, we didn't get to find that out.
Who do you think was the better goaltender between the two, if you had to pick one?
Not sure. I don't know. I mean, Pelle probably had a stronger background because he had won everything at the American League level, but
Right.
Both of them were as good as you could get for their age at the NHL. Unless Pelle got to play till he was 34, 35, you never really know how great he could have been. He's a great goaltender for a young guy.
At 26.
But he had no history. His
Right.
history was so short.
Right.
It's hard to know, but you figure that a guy like that would have been, going into the top 10 goaltenders of all time, probably.
Wow. That's pretty lofty. That's amazing.
He was that good.
Yeah, I mean, it was fantastic to watch the speed.
Yeah.
Just incredible. So in the long run, the rough years going into the late 80s, early 90s, do you think that the loss of Pelle not being able to trade for commodities made a difference?
Huge.
Really?
Made a huge difference. You can't take a player of that caliber off your team and at a young age like that and just take him right off and get nothing in return. That puts a hole in your club that's pretty hard to overcome.
And the organization was pretty rich with goaltenders. Did it change how you drafted?
No, not at all. No, we were lucky. I mean, we had Hextall coming. We were just lucky. It could have set us back 10 years. You don't find goaltenders like that very easy.
Right.
I mean, every team in the league is always looking for a great young goalie. We happened to have two of them, luckily, at that time.
And then you also had Froze there, too, luckily as the backup at that time.
Yeah, Froze was an average goaltender. He wasn't in the class of these guys.
Did you feel in 85, 86, after Pelle's death, that the Stanley Cup was still a possibility? I mean, the team was fantastic at that time, but with Froze, did you feel that you could win?
Well, we had Hextall coming, so we felt with Hextall we were going to get back to an A-class goaltender, but our team was starting to get older too at that time. You start playing 115 games or 120 games a year, you start getting beat up, and you only have so many kicks at the can. And by the time Hexie was going and stuff, we were getting injuries. Kerr was getting beat up, and
Right.
those guys. So,
As far as 85, 86 goes, so November of 85, and you had just won 10 straight games. It looked like you were dismantling every team in the league. Did you feel, now that we lost Pelle, the chances this season are really, really diminished, or were you still confident?
no, I don't. I mean, you can't ever admit that you don't think you're going to win.
Oh, sure.
How were we going to without? You can't win without great goaltending.
And you just didn't think Froze could carry the team all the way to the Cup final, or?
No, we didn't. But Hextall's in the minor leagues, and we didn't want to bring him up until the following year, because why would you put a young goaltender in a position like that?
Right, exactly.
We just let him finish the year out and then brought him up the next year.
Were you confident in Darren Jensen as a backup, or is that why you made the move to get Chico Resch?
Well, Resch was he was a really good person, and he was really good as a backup.
Right.
To work with the goalies and without causing any threat to Maxey or anybody. We loved Resch. He was perfect for the role we had him in.
Did he help buying that team together, trying to get into the playoffs? Was he a main factor?
Yeah.
His locker room presence?
Yeah.
How would do you feel the loss of Pelle, not just on the ice, but the emotional strain, contributed to the loss to the Rangers in the first round?
I think so. I think it takes something out of a club when you lose a player like that, especially a goaltender.
Right.
You know, it's... I don't think the Rangers were really better than we were on the ice, I think. But emotionally, we were not prepared to dig in, and, you know, we had that hole that we couldn't fill.
So not only on the ice was there a hole, but also emotionally from having to...
Yeah, I think for most of our players at that time, the young guys, they had never had a teammate or a young friend at that age die. It was a huge blow to our team, not only on the ice but off the ice as well. This was a friend of everybody's who,
right,
you know, got killed in a car accident. It hurts, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, going back to the year before, 84-85, what were your thoughts going into that season? You just left the ice. You become GM. What were you thinking? How far could this team go? It's such a young team.
It was I think at the start of the year, because Barber was done, we traded Sittler, I was done, all the older guys were gone.
Right.
And you don't know, when the younger guys are going to be ready to take over, but they took over pretty quickly, and I think Mike Keenan did an unbelievable job with them. We wanted to get into the playoffs and get some experience and stuff, but
right.
But Keenan did an unbelievable job. They dominated.
Now, looking back at that, a lot of newspaper columns were picking the Flyers to come in fourth behind the two New York teams in Washington. Was that what you thought realistically that was going to be at that time?
Probably. That was probably where we felt like we were before the season started.
Right. So it was a surprise, and then I guess early on, expectations started to change.
Well, we didn't know how good Talcott and Zezel and Derek Smith and these guys were going to be. Murray Craven, we just got from Detroit, and these are young players just starting out, and Keenan really drove them. He drove them to be really good players. Some of them, Craven and Talcott, Zezel had their best years with Keenan early on,
Absolutely.
And Zezel, after he left here, faltered. The other guys kept going, but
yeah,
Zezel couldn't hold it up after he got away from Keenan. Keenan forced him to be a good player.
And he looked like a stud early on.
He did. He looked like he'd be a star. But once Mike drove him. He was scared of Mike. Mike drove him to be a good player, and once he got away from Mike, he just went back to what he was.
Mm-hmm. Now, Pelle coming off that rough year in 83-84, were you behind the decision to give him a majority of the starts to just get him going?
I don't actually recall. I think it was more Keenan than he made the decision just that he was a goalie and he was going to run with him. Mm-hmm. And I think that really helped Pelle too. Gave him confidence, and obviously if you're a goaltender, if the coach has got confidence in you and says you're my guy, then if you have a bad outing, you're still going to go back in.
Right. And Bob Froese actually said that he thinks that Mike Keenan was instrumental in Pelle's performance 84-85.
I think so.
He said he was the biggest key to his turnaround. Had he not had that turnaround, if he had another season like 83-84, would the team have started to think maybe we should give Hextall the shot?
Sure.
So that was more of a make-or-break season for Pelle than anyone would have realized at the time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we actually, you're going back now, but we didn't know that Hextall was going to come on so quickly either.
Sure.
He was coming, but sure, Pelle, if you're a goaltender and you have a couple bad years in a row, it's, you're on eggshells then.
Right, so that was a make-or-break year. Now, 84, 85, obviously, you didn't expect to make the finals. But once you were there, obviously, winning game one, you're starting to think maybe this is it. Was Pelle's injury not the deciding factor, but maybe a part of the deciding factor of not winning it?
I don't think so.
You think Edmonton was just too good?
They were just better than us. Yeah, we battled them with everything and as hard as we possibly could. Every player gave everything that they had. I mean, talent-wise, they were way more talented.
Plus, you guys were decimated by injuries at that time, too.
But, we had some injuries. We would have been better had we been healthy, but still, that was a dynasty, that club they had.
Absolutely. Do you think there would have been a difference in 87? I mean, you went 7 games with Hextall. Had Pelle been in there, do you think it's 7 games, or do you think it's maybe over the top?
I don't think we could have got any better goaltending out of anybody than we got out of Hextall that year. Whether it was if Pelle was a goaltender, it would have been the same as Hexie, I think. Hexie was just brilliant.
Is there a feeling of 86 was the year since Edmonton got knocked out of the playoffs early?
Well,
does that come back and haunt you? You think, that was our shot?
No, I don't think about it that way. I mean, that would be just an excuse. If you're going to win it, you're going to have to beat good opponents, whether it's Edmonton, Calgary, whomever,
Mm-hmm. Now, getting into, right before Pelle's accident, there were a few papers that quoted you as saying that there was a trade in the works, possibly Bob Froese for Jay Wells. How close was that to coming to fruition?
I don't even recall now, to tell you the truth.
Mm-hmm. Darren Jensen said that he thought he was going to be called up as a backup fairly soon, that Froese was on his way out. In fact, I guess the game that Bob Froese played the night against Boston, Don Perry, I guess the scout from the Los Angeles Kings, was there. Do you recall any of that, or?
Well, not really. What I recall is that Bob Froese didn't want to be a backup goaltender.
Right.
And he wasn't outwardly vocal about it. He still let us know that he wasn't happy in the position he was in. So I would assume at that time, with Jensen ready to be a backup, but we would have traded Froese or would have been trying. But I don't recall if it was for Jay Wells or not.
Okay. Now, going into the 85-86 season, Pelle had somewhat of a slow start. First game I remember against New Jersey, 6-5 loss, kind of struggled a little bit. Do you think that might have been just a layover from the season before, just kind of working out the kinks? Or was it something to be concerned about?
Well, I don't think the first game of the year you can...
Well, it was actually the first couple of weeks of the season, going into November. I remember Froese got more starts at one point than Pelle did. Was there any concern that Pelle might have been struggling that season, or?
I don't really recall that. I know Keenan didn't like Froese very much, so that probably favored Pelle.
Sure.
He wanted Pelle to make it, and I think but I don't recall too much about it.
Sure. Yeah, it's 20 years ago. It's amazing how quick it...
Yeah.
What was your mindset going into that season? Stanley Cup at that point?
Always is.
Always. Now, going into November of 85, do you remember your last encounter with Pelle before his accident? Do you remember maybe the last conversation you had with him, or last time you got a chance to talk to him?
No, I don't. I really don't.
What's your account of what happened the night of the accident?
Well, I was I was in Boston.
Right.
And
was it a general manager meeting at that point?
No, I was just watching a couple of our college kids, and
okay.
I got a call early in the morning from my wife, and she said there's been a car accident, and Pelle's been hurt. And she didn't have any details or know anything about it, and I called this is like, I was leaving about 8 or 9 in the morning to come back anyway, and all I could get was that it was that Pelle was hurt. I didn't know how serious it was or anything, and I'm thinking, oh, it's a broken leg or something like that.
Right.
So I'm naturally thinking, well, we gotta get the goaltender up, and what are we gonna do with our goaltending and stuff. And
sure.
When I got to the hospital, I walked in on the press conference, and they said he's brain dead. That was the first thing I heard from the doctor. It was like, oh man.
And what's gone through your mind at that point?
Well,
I'm sure the hockey aspect is starting to take a back seat at that point.
Yeah, hockey doesn't even really cross your mind. And you don't know how to react. You're stunned. You're hurt. You don't know what to do, what to say, where to go.
Right. So the ride home on the plane from Boston, you have no idea how bad it is at that point.
No.
You're just thinking, I got to get a goaltender.
Yeah. When they said it was serious, I'm assuming that it's a broken leg or that he's not going to be playing for a while.
Right. Were you in the room with him in the hospital?
I did go in after him.
Did you say anything to him, or some players, such Mark Howe, mentioned that he sat with Pelle and said a prayer with Pelle. Was there anything like that with you?
When I was in, his fiancée was in there with him, and I spoke with her a little bit, and I didn't say anything to Pelle.
Mm-hmm. What was the hardest part about that for you?
Just trying to understand. There's no way of, I guess, justifying in your mind how something like this could happen. You just learn to live with it.
Now, you were instrumental, obviously, in getting the team through Barry Ashby's death. How was this both the same and how was it different, those situations for you?
I think when you're a player, you're right in the, and a player dies like that, like we went through with Ashby, you're right in the locker room with the other players, you're close to the other players, and when you're the manager, you're on the outside.
Sure, there's a little distance.
There's a distance, and the players don't need the manager when something like that happens. They need each other.
Right.
I think Keenan was pretty good about giving them time together and stuff like that, But I'm assuming that Davey Poulin was the guy who was the main guy.
Was it difficult for you being on the outside like that? Because you were only 2 years, not even, a year and a half removed from being a player.
Yeah, because you're by yourself. You wished you were a teammate and were in the locker room or with your teammates and stuff, but when you're the manager and something like that happens, you're by yourself.
So as far as the loss for you, made it a little bit more difficult.
Well, yeah, I don't know if it made it more difficult, but it was something you have to learn to handle yourself. You're not gonna, you got nobody to turn to.
Right. How did knowing Pelle and going through his death and his life change who you are today?
I don't know that it changed any. I mean, I think I was part of a team that benefited from having him as the goaltender, and I think he was the type of person that you don't forget for the rest of your life, so he has an impact of some kind on your life, but
sure.
I don't know that I changed or anything.
Did it change how you react with younger players? For instance, if you see a player who is going to go out and party, do you mention to them, this can happen?
It's happened before. I've done that before, and I've told numerous young players to not be buying the fastest car on the road and stuff.
And from all accounts, Pelle, that was his main vice.
Absolutely. He was almost a non-drinker.
Right.
But his speed, he loved that speed.
Yeah, I know when I talked to Jay Snyder, he mentioned that part of the reason why Pelle's number wasn't retired was possible reaction to the drunk driving aspect of it. Do you think that was the main reason why Pelle's number hasn't been retired?
No, that's maybe part of it. I think the numbers that have been retired are of players who have made major contributions for a long time.
Sure. Hall of Famers.
Yeah, but Pelle was a great goaltender, but only for a short period of time.
So it would be more on sentiment to retire his number than actually what happened on the ice.
Yeah. And I don't think. I don't know. I don't know if it's appropriate, because we've actually had we had a young kid named Tertishny.
Sure.
He went, got killed in a boating accident. And
right.
I don't think you can.
Yannick Dupree
With cancer and stuff. I don't think you can retire their numbers because they die at young ages.
Right.
There's got to be, retired numbers because of a contribution made to the team for a long period of time.
Is it sentimental reasons why Pelle's number isn't used by other goaltenders?
Yeah, we've never said don't use it, but I think the trainers have been here. Actually, the trainer just left this year who had Pelle in Portland and in Philly, so he probably wouldn't let anybody else wear it.
Right.
Nobody's ever said don't allow anybody to wear that number, but we're protective of it.
Sure. He was a special person, special player. If he had played in today's NHL, do you think he could compete?
Absolutely.
Really?
Sure.
Do you think he'd be a top-of-the-line goaltender at this point?
Absolutely.
Who would you compare him to? And what type of career? Would it be a Brodeur type of career?
Well, I think he had a chance to be at that level like Brodeur.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't quite as big as Brodeur, but he was certainly as agile and flexible and smart.
Do you think he changed the way the team played in front of him? Because were they more apt to gamble a little bit offensively, knowing that he was back there? Maybe defensemen cheat a little bit at the points.
We were really under Keenan. We were really aggressive, attacked the puck everywhere, so we gave up lots of scoring chances.
Right.
Yeah, we weren't and because of him, we always had low goals against, but it wasn't necessarily because of style. We were just aggressive, and he made lots of saves for us.
Are there any games or moments from Pelle that stick out in your mind? Was there one game in particular where you said, "Man, oh man, this guy's just unbelievable"?
I thought the year that we beat the Nordiques,
mm-hmm.
that we never should have. That he stole that series for us.
That Game 5 was amazing.
Yeah.
Where do you think he would be now had he lived? Do you think he would have stayed with the Flyers as some kind of a scout or a coach, or do you think that he was, going to go back to Sweden? Purely speculation, but
my guess is he wasn't. I don't think his interest would have been in coaching or scouting. He had a zest for life. He liked the good things, and he probably would have went back to Europe and been hanging around the racing cars and stuff,
Right. If he could come back today for 5 minutes and you had a chance to say something to him, what would you say?
Tell him to sell that.
That was the main thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's easy to say, but
sure.
Obviously, he drove it too fast all the time. It wasn't just, and he used to go up to the Poconos and drive on the track, and that was fine, but
right.
You go down 295, you just fly everywhere.
And didn't he have a couple of minor accidents even the year before? The car caught on fire or something like that?
I don't recall.
Yeah, from what I've heard, he had a couple of those. But he was warned, right? A lot of people told him, take it easy.
Oh, yeah. But he just smiled. He had a special engine put in it and everything,
Yeah, he had it overhauled, right?
Took it to Germany. summer and had a special engine put in it. There's only 3 of them in the country at the time.
Wow. And it wasn't even street legal.
It wasn't street legal, no.
Wow.